I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends Podcast. Podcast designed to be feel-see and think differently about the podiatry profession. Today, I have Olivia Brown. Now, Olivia has been on the podcast before, back in episode 360. We're talking about collaboration enhances patient care. Olivia is a sports therapist, scar practitioner, and stretching enthusiast, and has worked in the industry for about 10 years now. So, Olivia, it is fantastic to have you back on, and what we're going to talk about today, I think, is super important. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I've been really looking forward to chatting, to be honest. Again, from the foot and ankle show, we seem to have come up with another topic to talk about. It's quite important to me, this topic, so I'm really looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, so we were at the foot and ankle show, and we crossed paths a couple of times. Then towards the end, we were watching someone talk that we won't get into because it's not really important who was talking.
No.
But it was, and I said to you, oh, that was an interesting talk. What did you think about it?
Yeah.
And then you told me. And I went,
well, I grimaced first.
Yeah, you went, oh. And I went, what's wrong? Did you not like talking? It's not that I didn't like the talk. It was just a part of the concept of the talk that you didn't like. And at first I wasn't sure what you meant. Then you explained it to me. And I do understand. I partially agreed. So I thought, need to get you on here and we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, so I'll briefly just cover the story without mentioning anything of anybody else's. But basically, the reason I grimaced, so for the listeners, the reason I grimaced was for two reasons. One, because of the disappointment that I felt during said talk. And two, because you asked me and I'm quite direct. And I was like, I can't lie, but I also feel I can't tell the truth. But I did tell the truth. So basically, this particular talk was discussing a certain product, let's say, and the product was for a certain pain. I'm not going to say which because I don't want anyone to work out who it was.
Yeah, we can't divulge anything, not too much information.
Not divulge anything. So basically, I was really intrigued by this because I've not heard about this product being used for this type of injury. I see this particular pain quite often. So I thought I'm really interested to go and see what it's about, how does it work, maybe listen to the science behind it, maybe listen to good reviews and how it's gone in clinic, things like that. So I'm sat there ready to take my notes. It's about a 40-minute talk, I think it was. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be quite meaty on the content. And within 3 or 4 slides, I think it was, they'd already started discussing how much you're going to earn, how quick it is within clinic. And I thought, this is all wrong because we're not really looking at the product itself and how well it's going to treat these patients and the outcomes it's going to have. We're looking at basically how much money can we earn in the shortest period of time. And it just sat really wrong for me. And it made me feel really uncomfortable, and it backed up my strong feelings towards integrity within the industry. So, yeah.
I think you may have mentioned you felt like you need a shower afterwards.
Yeah. It makes me feel icky because it does. It makes me feel like I want to shower. I agree.
Yeah, it's funny because I've said that in just a recent podcast episode. I'd mentioned we were talking about my book, and the person said, how much they enjoyed the book, how much they've used the book, how much it's helped their business, and everything's going really well, and they've done financially doing well from it. And I said, and the funny part about the title of my book is it's no secret there's money in podiatry. I said, now there are a lot of people that saw that title and went, but would have had that icky sort of feel about it. And I said to her, I went, when you read the book, do I talk about money at any stage in the book? She went, actually, you don't. I said, yeah. I said, because it's not about, I said, having a business or using a piece of equipment. Yes, you don't want to lose money on a piece of equipment, but you should be buying that piece of equipment because it does a particular task that you want for your patient. And this is the best thing to do it. And yes, the back end, you should be, like I said, you shouldn't be losing money on it, but it's not all about, I'm going to buy that piece of equipment because I'm getting it because I make money, not I'm getting it because it helps the patient. That's what got you.
Absolutely, because my little motto in my brain that I don't share is lead with integrity and success will follow. Yep. I fully believe you really care for what you're doing and you're passionate about it and you learn the skill and you use it correctly, then you can't not be successful by applying all of those things. So
I agree. So what is it that you want to talk about to help get this across to people better?
So I've got a few bullet points down. Anyone who knows me knows I am not a bullet point person and I'm not a notes person, but because I'm strongly feeling on this, I have actually made some notes today. So I've got 4 different points that I think are very strong, integral points for the care industry.
Yeah.
And then I've also linked them to a few mini points of how we can apply them day to day within practice. And then I also have a few questions at the end for everybody else. I've got 3 questions.
Not for me.
You don't have to answer them. But I would like people to listen to the question and see how it sits with them moving forward. Because sometimes you think, well, am I being integral here? Am I using integrity? What is Olivia on about? But this, especially the first question I ask, I do think it will answer your question, because whatever reaction you have to the question will answer, am I acting with integrity or not?
I'm looking forward to this. But I will say there's some podiatrists who 100% money focused. They've got blinkers on. That's all they think about. And I know I was accused that that's what I was like. And I used to go, I'm not. I'm good at actually running a business, and I can't help it if the money follows from that. But I know there's other people that will say, I know, I care more about my patients and making money. And I think they're at the other extreme, where sometimes when I think if you're not charging enough and you're not making money, you're not doing the right thing by your patients, because then you can't buy the equipment that is actually going to help them. So there's that balance in between.
Absolutely. There's a fine line, and also about valuing yourself, because if you've got all of those amazing skills and you've invested a lot of money into learning it, at the end of the day, it is a business and you do need to earn, but you can still earn by being honest and doing correct practice. So yeah, I agree, it's both. And also, if you're self-employed and you're working extra hours and you're working all these different things that you wouldn't necessarily do if you were in a more employed basis, for example, like yourself, so you're coming up with all these ideas, these books and things, you're doing that because you're putting yourself out of the ordinary. So you deserve a more successful outcome. And also, money is a tool at the end of the day. What is your reason for earning the money? So mine is because I want more freedom. I want to have more nice holidays. I would like to spend more time with my friends and family rather than being at work all the time. So freedom element for me, and money is a tool that allows that. So money is important, but also honesty. They're a partnership, not a playoff, I think.
Oh no, I definitely agree. So what's your first point?
So my first point is honesty. It has to be honesty, obviously. That's the first point. And there's a few ways in which I say honesty. So first of all is working within your scope of practice. That's my mini point. So working within your scope of practice. So sometimes I've heard stories before, again, which makes me feel icky, makes me want to shower, where people have said to their patient, I can help you with this, this, and this, even though it's not within their skill set, it's not within their qualifications, and it's not what they actually should be doing. So for me, that's not being honest. You're telling your patient that you can fix a problem or help with a problem or offer an advice about something that's not actually within your skill set, which is an issue. Also, sometimes we're not miracle workers. If we can't do something, we should say, actually, do you know what? This particular injury is not something that I can actually work with. So I couldn't find this review. I've been looking for ages. So if anyone wants to spend time stalking my Facebook to find this review, I'd be grateful, because it's one of my favourite reviews that I've ever had. And a client came into me with very severe sciatic symptoms, lower back pain, numbness, tingling, all of the above. And within 5 minutes, I knew I can't deal with this situation and they need to see a professional. So in the hospital, in the doctors, whatever, they need to go and get proper treatment immediately. So I did a quick assessment. They wasn't in my room for probably more than 10 minutes. And okay, I could have charged them because I did assess and it was my skill set knowing that. But I chose not to because honestly, that was my choice at the time.
Yeah.
So I said, look, I think that you've got A, B, and C going on. It's not something that I can deal with. I could give you some exercise, I could give you this, but honestly, in my opinion, it's too far gone and you need some help. You need some intervention. Anyway, so he seemed a little bit miffed with me, if I'm honest, but I did the right thing and off he went. And about a year later, I am going to find this review. I'm adamant.
I would have charged him for the miffiness, but that's just fine.
So yeah, he was a bit miffed, which I understand. The guy was in agony and he wanted to be the miracle cure. He was miffed.
Yeah, and it's an important point, because when people are in pain, they're not thinking clearly.
No.
recently, and yeah, we had to reschedule this recording
Yeah.
because I'd hurt my back and had this sciatic problem, and my God, there was nothing
Yeah.
like it. Now, I was not the most polite person with the GP who I was seeing instead of a normal GP. So I can understand when you're in a lot of pain,
Yeah.
you're not rational sometimes.
No, and he was a little bit miffed with me. Off he went, and it was about a year or 18 months later, this review popped up, and it was really long. It was a full scrolling message, and I was like, oh gosh, that's like quite a big message. What's going on here? So I'm reading it, I'm a bit anxious, my hands are a bit clammy. And I was like, oh, he's saying a good thing. Because to be honest with you, I couldn't even remember because it was just such a short period of time I saw him for.
Mm.
And I thought, I don't know who this person is. And they're writing this massive essay on my page. And he basically said, thank you for your honesty. I came in, you told me you couldn't handle it. You told me what you thought the situation was. You was right. You was correct in everything you said. I ended up having to have surgery, this surgery, and this surgery. I've had this extensive rehab, and discussed what he'd had to have done in the intervention. And then he said he was grateful that I didn't rip him off and that I told him the truth. And that was that. And I was like, wow. And since then, I've had referrals from this guy. He sent family members and friends because, like, Olivia's honest. She told me the truth. She knew what it was and didn't rip me off. So,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't earn anything on that specific day. And yes, you could argue I should have charged for the assessment. However, from that, I've had a couple of clients from him that I've treated and earned from leading with integrity. So I do think honesty is the best policy always. And also with that, I think it's important to me because we've all had situations in our life, personally and at work, GPs, whatever, where we've felt that they have been dishonest or not cared enough or not just thrown it off to one side. And how did you feel in that time when you was treated that way? And I think, so would you like to be treated that way? No. So you mustn't do it to somebody else. If you don't know, refer on.
Yeah. And I felt like the GP I was talking about, they were being very dismissive. So as I'm trying to tell them, they're talking again, you're not hearing me. You've already put blinkers on and you've gone down a path that you think this is what should be done. I'm telling you right now, we should be heading down a different path. And wouldn't listen. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks later that I eventually got to see my own GP that we got on the right path, got the right treatment, and within 2 weeks, 90% better.
Yeah. It's slightly off tangent, but I do think that a patient knows their body better than the therapist always. You guys have gut instincts and you can feel yourself. I do think the therapist doesn't know the body as well as the patient always.
But getting on the honesty part, though, I remember there's two patients that jumped to mind. There was one lady, I remember she came in and she said, I have this particular problem. I said, yep, okay. She said, I saw a podiatrist and they made me some orthotics. I went, okay. She said, but I couldn't wear them. So I went to this other podiatrist and they said, oh, yeah, you definitely need orthotics. So they made me a pair of orthotics, but I couldn't wear them. So then I went and saw this other podiatrist. So I was podiatrist number 5.
Wow.
And I went, oh my God. I said, what's the problem? So she told me what it was. I said, have you got all the orthotics here? She gave them all to me and I looked at them all and I said, well, they all look exactly the same. I said, when you said you couldn't wear them, she goes, I couldn't fit them in my shoe. And I said, show me your shoes. So she showed me a shoe. I said, just leave with it. I took one pair, went out the back, did a couple of adjustments to it for 5 minutes, brought it back in, put it in a shoe. So you stand on that. She went, they feel amazing. And I said, yeah, well, that was the first pair.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to take the others back. I'm going to adjust them all. You now have 4 pairs of orthotics you can put in all your different shoes. And she said, so you're not going to make me another pair? I said, you don't need another pair.
No.
So I charged you for the consultation and the orthotic adjustments, but didn't make it. Once again, she wrote a really good review.
Yeah.
And then I remember a patient just before I sold my practice. And I'd been seeing this guy for over 20 years. And I'd made this pair of orthotics for him out of this particular material that was quite rigid. He loved them. He used to come in every couple of years, didn't see him for years. All of a sudden, he came in just before I was selling. He said, oh, since I've been seeing him for a while, I thought I should get these orthotics checked. I checked them. And he said, how are they? I said, they're fine. I said, I wouldn't. I said, are they working well? He goes, yeah. They're comfortable? Yeah. Your problem's still gone? Yes. I said, they look fantastic. Don't do anything with them. He said, so you don't want to make me another pair? You don't want to make the money from it? I said, I don't need to. Once again, he wrote a fantastic review along those lines that it felt good to deal with someone in the health industry that I felt listened to and I wasn't being taken advantage of.
Yeah. And you respond so much better to that and write the reviews and tell your friends and family. And then the therapists themselves end up with more clients and also a happier workplace as well, because you're working and people are really pleased with the work that you do and you're creating a good reputation, which if we go back to money, then you're going to earn more, aren't you, by doing it correctly? So
if you, like you said, if you just do the right thing, people notice it. Yes, and sometimes you make great money from it. Other times you make okay. And sometimes to do the right thing, you will lose money in that process. But at the end of the day, the person you do the right thing by, and I'm not saying every patient you do the right thing by writes a nice review. Some of them you do the right thing by and they still turn around and call you a bastard. And you go, oh, well, but you still feel good because you haven't done the wrong thing. Yeah.
You did the right thing. So my second point, which
what is it?
It leads me on from your insole point. I've just switched my points because it leads better.
Yeah.
Your adjustments and things. My second point is education and skill set. So it leads again with working within your scope of practice and the honesty. But your education and skill set is really important. So if you're dealing with a specific thing and it's coming into clinic every single week and you're actually not 100% clued up on it, what you need to be doing is, instead of just blagging it, you need to actually go and research it. And I'm not saying you have to do another course. If you've already learned it in the past, you've just forgotten elements of the anatomy, or we're human, we forget things, we can't remember everything, we're not a computer. But what you can do is you can go and reread old notes, you can reread old textbooks and things that you've used from courses. The internet's got literally everything on it. You can brush up on your skills. Or if there's something that you've seen a lot and you would like to work with it, instead, you could perhaps invest in some sort of CPD, some sort of developing yourself, a smaller course, for example, so that your skill set is correct. Because one of the biggest things that makes me feel icky, we're going back to that again, is working without your scope of practice. I hate to see it. I hate it when people say, oh, I'm an osteopath. Well, you're not actually an osteopath. You're a sports therapist. Or I'm a chiropractor. Are you a chiropractor or are you a physiotherapist? Well, your title is really important, and there's a reason why they're regulated. You mustn't work out of your scope of practice because it's not correct. You wouldn't like a surgeon working on your arm if their main surgery job is feet, would you?
No,
You'd be like,
oh, they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you need to refer on. So that's my second point: education and skill set.
Okay, I will comment on that. I do know what my strengths were in podiatry. When it came to biomechanics, making orthotics, diagnosing problems, I think I was really good at it. And the results would say, basically the results of my patients would say I was. So that was the proof. And I enjoyed doing that part. What I didn't enjoy when it came to rehab, putting exercise programs together, that type of work, I could touch on it, I could give a little bit, but that was definitely not my wheelhouse. So I had physios that I worked closely with, and I'd rather have the patient taken to a certain point and go, now I want you to go see this person because they're going to take you through all this rehab stuff. They're going to give you the right exercise. They're going to now follow you up from that point onwards. And that was a great way of referring backwards and forwards. But I would rather have done that than give them not the wrong advice, but not give them the best advice that they.
Yeah.
And it's probably fresh in my mind too, because I was at the physio this afternoon. And he had me doing these exercises on a Pilates reformer machines.
Yeah, I love
those. I've never been on one before. It's a lot harder than I thought. But
yeah, everyone just thinks it's just doing like nice poses like on Instagram. Yeah. It's a lot harder, isn't it?
But even just doing that, I never had one of those things in my podiatry clinic. And I don't know, maybe there's some podiatrists that, I know there are some podiatrists that do have them. But if a patient really needs that, then you should make sure you're referring on, that they get that. Don't just give them a couple of exercises and go, oh, that should be okay. And because you're limiting yourself, is make sure you refer them on for that other treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. Which leads me on to my third point perfectly. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Which is bad mouthing other therapists. It's a massive no-no, and it's not active integrity, which is why when I told our story of how we ended up with this podcast today at the start, wouldn't give any information that means anyone could look through the program and find out where it came from, because I don't want to do that. And What's the quote? The candle quote. Your candle doesn't burn brighter by blowing other people's out. Really important. Really like that quote because
That is a good quote.
it's good, isn't it?
It is really good. I like that.
If you're bad mouthing other therapists and you're saying actually then they're good, all you're doing, in my opinion, is making yourself look a certain type of way. Instead, what you could say is, okay, this is what you've been given. Let's put that there. We're going to focus on, today I'm going to do my personal assessment because I've not seen you before. This is what I would like to give you, etc., etc., and then move forward from there. I don't feel that bad mouthing other therapists is a positive way to run your practice. And also, if you work as a team, like you've just said, both referring, both of you therapists are then benefiting because that client patient will look and say, actually, this guy's really good with the insoles, this guy's really good with the rehab. I'm going to see him first and him second. Brilliant. So both of you have got good business, both of you are working as a team, both of you is working as a network, and that means he's always going to send people to you if he prefers working like that, and you're going to send him to him, It's going to work that way. I have a couple of people that I do refer to if it's stuff I don't like doing. So for me personally, I don't like doing regular sports massage all day, every day. I like to do a few, but I like to work with injury diagnosis, injury rehab, post-op stuff. That's what I enjoy doing. So I've got a friend, though, in the industry that loves doing just the sports massage. So it's brilliant. I send all of them to her, and she sends all of the other people to me. And we work together. So we're getting the right clientele, what we enjoy. We work better, we enjoy our day, and everything flows a lot nicer. And also, when an event comes up and all you therapists work together as a team, go and see Olivia for this. She likes doing that because it's all friendly and amicable, rather than creating that horrible barrier that, again, it isolates you from actually improving your business, in my opinion.
Well, it's funny you said, when I said that story before about the lady who had the 4 pairs of orthotics, the part I left out was each podiatrist bagged the podiatrist beforehand about how crappy their orthotics were. And then she said, and the next part I said, look at those. Those guys have got no idea what they're doing. You need to get them made properly. And then they made the other ones. But when I looked at them and I just said, they look same. And I didn't even know who the other podiatrists were. I didn't care. But I think that happens in a lot of industries. And that GP that I was telling you about, the one that I felt was not listening to me, was being dismissive. When I said to him, I've got a physio appointment tomorrow, and then I'm seeing the chiropractor like on the Friday. He went, geez, don't go and see a chiropractor. They'll just make it worse. They're just quacks pretty much. And I just looked at him and went, I already don't like you.
Yeah. Made it worse.
And now you're just challenging me on, you're pretty much saying I'm stupid for going to see a chiropractor. And to me, that practitioner has bagged another profession.
And the thing is, you can word it in a certain way. So if he felt that a chiropractic treatment would make you worse, he could have said, what is your reasoning for seeing the chiropractor versus a physiotherapist or a sports therapist?
Yeah.
I think the best treatment for you would be to try and do this and this, which is found within this industry and within this type of practitioner. You can advise without being dismissive. And I think another point with your insole game, with the 4 insoles, is you said that all 4 insoles were very similar. So when these people have been saying, the other guys before, they're crap insoles, my point, going back to point 1, were they being honest? Because if they all look the same, were they being honest when they said that those insoles were crap? Probably not, because if they look exactly the same, that's not honesty, is it?
It's one of those things that it does happen, like in podiatry. I'm not sure about other professions.
It happened.
But they always talk about eating their young. And it's some of the people that have been in the profession for a certain period of time, and that it's like the status level, the longer you've been in, they want to reach to the top, and they hold certain positions, and they're building their businesses. And as younger ones are coming through, they're so quick to just bite the heads off of them and try and put them back down. And so my brother said in dentistry, same thing happens. So I assume every profession is the same. And I was talking to, I got some friends who are doctors, who are just new into the profession. And they went, hey, you haven't seen anything yet until you see the medical profession and then the medical profession and the hospital hierarchy. They go, that is just atrocious.
Which I think is such a shame, because the new people coming into the industry have obviously got a more up-to-date level of education that they've been learning, because obviously things change. And if you're a therapist that, again, going back to point 2, is not updating your skill set and your education regularly, your information might be outdated. We might have learned new things. Science is always developing. We're always learning about different methods and things like that. So I do think it's really important that you do listen to younger people, because they're coming in with new ideas, and also they're wanting to learn the latest information. If you just stay stagnant, you're not learning the new information. Actually, they're more integral than you, because they've got the up-to-date skill set. Okay, they don't have the experience, of course, but things do change, and we do need to keep up to date with those things. So, yeah.
I used to love employing new graduates. That was my thing. Most of my employees were new graduates, and I loved that eager enthusiasm they had. And plus, you had to pick the right new graduate. It wouldn't be every new graduate would have been able to work with me, because I was a bit tough on them. But those that did, who survived, I used to get so much out of working with them, because they would come with all the new stuff that they learned that year, all the new things that they're doing at the university. So as we were doing things, we were always combining my experience with what was new. Yeah. And I'd get them questioning me on what they were doing, and I'd question them. And then they would adapt how we would do things at the clinic. When the next new graduate came in, it just kept evolving and just kept improving.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters how good you are. Nobody knows everything.
No, of course not. They keep things fresh. The new people keep things fresh. It's really important. And also, it's nice to have a different opinion sometimes, a different lane to look at. You can get very fixated on how you do things when it's working well. It's nice sometimes to see a different way of doing things. I think it's good for us to have an open mind.
Yeah, I was very much guilty of that for a certain section of my career. I reckon I was extremely guilty of not wanting to change how I did certain things, because how I did it worked so well. I'm going, why should I mess with it? It works so good. Don't mess with it. But then when I started seeing what other people are doing, I go, oh, you know what I'm doing is good, but this might actually make it better. So then I started adapting. Sometimes it didn't make it better. Sometimes I made it worse, and I'd go back to what I was doing.
Yeah, but then you learn, actually, do you know what, my method is better, actually. Or you can say, you know what? Or you can say, actually, no, do you know what, this is actually much easier. I totally understand why they're doing it this way.
That's one discussion I always have with new graduates. They go, we were taught to do it this way. I go, and that is the way that you should be doing it if you want to pass your exams at university. You should be doing it their way. You'd never argue with them. I said, however, in the real world, that doesn't work. No. And they go, well, why would the lecturers teach us that? I said, because they don't know the real world. I said, a lot of them, they may have only been out for a little bit, but they've gone back into university. It's not a fantasy world, but it is a little bit. Certain parts of it.
I always think it's like driving. So you have all your driving lessons, and you drive like a bit like this, don't you? And you're like, you know, looking at about 45 mirrors at the same time. And you're like, oh, I'm stressing, and you're thinking, I've got to do it in this specific order. Then when you've passed your test and you go out on your own, you learn, actually, for me to be able to see better, I need to check that mirror twice and then that one. That's easier for me to see. Or when I go this way, it works better if, I don't know, indicate a little bit earlier than I was advised to do so that the person can see what's going on. So I'm not saying like you change the rules of what you've learned, but you learn, actually, I think you learn to drive better after you've passed your test.
Oh, yeah. And that comes with the experience as well. And like I was saying, like with the lecturers, I'm not saying lecturers live in a fantasy world, but in the university, there's a certain way of thinking that you must think that way. And even if a lecturer came in and they were teaching you something, you go, but I don't think that's right. You still have to do it that way if you want to pass.
Yeah. What else have I got?
Oh, yeah. What else you got on your sheet there? And then we're going to get your questions.
Yeah, and I've got questions as well.
Yeah.
Right. Number 4 is quite simplistic. So consistency between what you say and what you do. If you say, I'm going to go away and I'm going to make you a rehabilitation plan for this and this, when they get back, you need to have made a rehabilitation plan for this and this. So another thing, like add in things like accurate records and things like that, so that when you say that you're going to do something, you've got your accurate record, you can have a look, you can make it properly, you can come back, you've done it all properly, rather than just winging it on the day or just saying, actually, we'll try this, this and this. I think preparation obviously, I'm a little bit like you, so my brain works similar. I'll be like, oh, actually, I'm going to try this, so I think this is going to work.
Yeah.
However, for certain things, you do need to have some prep, as in today. I've prepped for today.
Yeah.
Sometimes in some situations, you need a little bit of prep. If you're designing a plan for somebody, or you say you're going to get something in, like a certain type of insole in for that person, order it in, you then need to do it. It's part of your business. You need to be saying something and doing it as well. Not just saying, oh, next time I'm going to check this. And when they arrive, just totally forgetting to check it.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, write it down. So what for my personal notes, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that you have to do it my way, but for my notes, I'll write everything up. And then if there's something that I need to particularly check, I'll put a little star in the corner. You must check this next time, first job. And you also need to tweak exercise 3 if they're having discomfort with it. So the first thing they do when they come in, how are you doing? Update me from last time. I've got 2 pointers that I just need to check from your previous treatment. We'll go through those first, and then we'll do whatever else we need to do today. Because it's then consistency between what I say and what I do, rather than just winging it when they walk in and seeing what they bring.
Yeah.
You can wing it on the first occasion because you don't know what they're going to bring you. But after that, if you're going through a treatment method and you're having to see them on several occasions, I think it's really important that to give them value for money and make sure that they are being looked after properly, you prep, you write your points, and make sure that then they're getting what they was asked last time. So that's point 4.
Oh, no. And it's a good point. 2 parts. One, nothing worse when someone says they're going to do something and they don't do it. I had some podiatrists in the past that would tell a patient, oh, I'll have this for you on Wednesday. They were never going to have it done Wednesday.
No.
Or they could have had it done Wednesday, but from after, as soon as the words are finished coming out of their mouth, their brain switched off and it was never going to get done because they just didn't make it a priority. But the other thing too is when someone says you're going to do something, and there's a lot of businesses that do this, not just in healthcare, and then you rock up and they might do something, and then the one thing that they said that was really important that they were going to do, it's just they don't even bring it up in the conversation. And
No.
say, okay, well, was it really that important or not? So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Also, you sit there and you think, well, did they even care though? Did they write anything down? Are they actually taking my treatment serious? Because you said you was going to do that last time. I've gone away thinking, oh, when I next go to my appointment, she or he or whatever is going to ask me this, this, and this, and then they didn't ask me. And I've been thinking about it the whole 6 weeks waiting for my appointment and thinking in my head and writing notes, and they never asked me. So I think that's a very important point. And then my last point for integrity, before my questions, is making sure that you act on all of those points when nobody is watching. So when your patient isn't there, when your friends and family aren't there, when your work colleagues aren't there, making sure that you're doing these points, not because you're in public and people are watching you and you want to look good, but you're doing them because you're doing them correctly, without anybody looking at you, without anybody seeing, without anybody knowing. You're doing it because it's the correct behaviour. That is the key principle of what integrity actually is, in my opinion.
Oh, no, it is. It's doing the right thing when no one's watching. It's no different to, it's like anything in life. I remember a few years back, I did this walking challenge called the 365-hour mental and physical challenge. So the idea was I had to walk an hour a day, every day for 365 days, regardless of where I was in the world. Okay. At the same time, listen to a podcast, and then I'd shoot a video sharing 3 points from the podcast. That was the plan. Started off a lot smaller, but it just blossomed from there. And that's how I ended up in podcasting, just from this challenge. And I remember that it was one of those years where I was in Japan for 10 days. I was in Bali twice. I was on a cruise ship for 10 days. I was in Las Vegas at a conference. I was in Arizona. It was one of those years I had so much travel on, but I still, every day, no matter where, imagine you're in Vegas for 5 nights and I'm getting up at 5 a.m. every morning to get this walk in, shoot my video, get it edited, get it uploaded before I arrived at the conference at 8:30 that morning. Doing that in Vegas is really, really hard. And I had a few people who said to me, if you just miss a couple of days and just make it up, no one will know.
Oh, no.
And I went, I know I could do that. I said, but I will know.
Yeah. And it's not authentic, is it? It's not authentic.
Yeah. And they said, yeah, maybe like when we were on this cruise ship for 10 days, and I was 12 days, I think. And I'd wake up every morning and I would walk around the deck of the cruise ship for an hour And then I was listening to the podcast and I'd shoot the video on a different spot on the boat at different times. Then we'd have to get off the boat. When we're getting off the boat and everyone were off doing their tours, I would have to go and find a Starbucks that had the internet so I could edit my video, download it, and get it uploaded that same day before I could then go and join the trip that everyone was doing. And everyone's going, just walk for half an hour. No one will know. Okay. But I will know.
Yeah.
That's
where experience there as well. Like that experience, and you're telling me that story, and that's how you started your podcasting. That's part of the story, your experience. Do you know what? It was so challenging. Then I had to have this story where I had to do this at 5 a.m. for an hour. That's part of the whole package of the story. If you'd have just lied, you wouldn't have had that same feeling.
Yeah, like I admit, when I was in Japan and it's -2 degrees in the morning, and I've got to get up and I've got to go and do this walk, listen to podcasts, shoot some videos, get it edited before my family got out of bed, before we went to Universal Studios in Osaka. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Actually, we were in Fiji too that year. And I'm getting up in the morning and walking through villages, and I came across a rattlesnake and a bobcat having a fight in the desert in Arizona. I walked in torrential rain. I walked in, like 45-degree heat. It was an incredible year. And it was almost like I couldn't have picked a worse year to decide to do this thing. But finishing it was one of the best things I ever did. And knowing I did not take any shortcuts was even better.
No, they say growth happens in difficult times. So obviously you picked the perfect year for the job, I think.
Yeah, and what was funny about it is, some people go, oh, you only walked an hour a day. It's not that hard. Do it.
Yeah.
But what was even better, there was a group of people, there's a few people in America and other countries who were friends of mine who saw what I was doing and then encouraged them to do their own. And they started doing a walking challenge. There was a gym, Dragon Gym, in just outside of Philadelphia, and they decided to do a 30-day challenge at their Muay Thai gym about getting people to come in every day and do something at the gym for a certain period of time. So what I was doing had a positive effect on other people.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a brilliant story.
And if you ever want to see any of the videos, just Google 365-hour mental and physical challenge, and they'll pop up in different places. Yeah, they're pretty funny. I had hair then too, so I walked it off. So did you have any more points? And we're going to get into your questions now.
They're all my points. I have some questions now.
Yes. Okay. First one's a tough one, you said.
The first one is the main question, and then I just added bits to it. But the main question, I'm going to read it so that I get it correct.
Yes.
Because I've really thought about this question. So, would I be comfortable if this decision that I'm currently making was documented, reviewed professionally, and explained directly to my patient?
Good question.
Sub-question.
Yeah.
Would I then be comfortable if this same decision was reviewed publicly?
Yep, good question.
And then my final question was, after that happened, this decision that I'm making, how does it land in my body? Do I get a feeling in my chest? Do I get a feeling in my stomach? Does it make me feel uneasy? How does it make me feel? And I believe if you've got your decision that you're making and you go through all of those questions, you'll answer it yourself without even having to speak, because you'll know if your stomach starts to feel a bit funny, or your chest feels a bit heavy, or your hands are going a bit clammy, you'll naturally know. Or you think, actually, no, I wouldn't want the whole public to see what I'm doing right now. You know that you're not acting with integrity.
Well, that's going to make people squirm. But what I like about those questions, though, is that is one of the things I used to say to the people that work for me. I said to them, if this patient went and saw another podiatrist who was experienced, how comfortable would you feel that podiatrist, if they asked for a copy of your notes?
Yes.
I said, how comfortable would you be handing over your notes? And do you think that other podiatrists with experience would be treating them the same way or be doing something different? And I used to say that all the time, just to keep you thinking. And then I always tell them as well, you never know, the next patient that walks in is going to be the one that is going to sue you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to make sure that everything you've got written down there, you can justify every single thing, and you're not lying, you're not making stuff up, you're not cutting corners, you're not putting notes in there because you couldn't be bothered doing it.
Yeah.
I said, and you should be able to go to sleep at night, put your head on the pillow and not feel bad about what you've done today.
Absolutely. I like that, showing the notes. I might add that as like a fourth question.
Well, it is, because some people say, I'm seeing a different podiatrist. Can I get a copy of your notes? Not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you just hand them out. I never had a problem with anyone seeing my notes. If they could read my writing, was great, but no, it was.
Yeah, no, I hear that. It's a good thing everything's online now, yeah, because my handwriting would be all over the place.
Yeah, but it was. I never had a problem with anything I ever did or diagnosed. But there were times when, like, I'd have some people that were working for me who may have only been out 2 or 3 years, but I knew they had more experience in certain parts of what they were doing just through a sport that they'd done. So if I was with a patient, we'd be going through something, I'd go, hey, look, I'm going to book you in next week on Tuesday. But in the meantime, I'm going to go talk with one of the other podiatrists that works with me. Never said works for me, always said works with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get their opinion on this, because same thing. I'm pretty sure what we should be doing, but I know that's their sport. So I'm going to see if they've got anything different. They still love bouncing ideas off other people, because I knew I didn't know it all.
And I think as well as like a patient, like for me, if I was going to see someone and they said to me, do you know what, actually, I know somebody who's a lot more specialist within this, that's their forte, I would be really pleased that they'd done that for me, because I think, do you know what, actually, that's great, because I want the best treatment possible. And now you've put me in the correct direction. So now both of you are high up on my list of referrals. Yep. So I think from a patient perspective, that's a really good thing to do.
Okay, Olivia, this has been absolutely fantastic. I have enjoyed every part of this. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I think that's everything. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks for coming back on. I'm glad I asked you that question after that talk of what did you think? And you made a grimace, that's a bit of a squirm. I'm glad I picked up on that. I'm glad I asked you why, and you told me why, and you agreed to come back on here and share it, because I think everybody, whether you're a podiatrist, sports therapist, any profession, doesn't matter whether you're in healthcare or not, I think everyone, what I said, lead with integrity and successful follow. So it has been fantastic.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Okay. I look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Olivia today. And if today's episode resonated with you, I think it's because deep down, most healthcare professionals genuinely want to do the right thing. The challenge is that sometimes business pressures, could be social media, marketing, financial stress, and competition can slowly pull people away from why they entered healthcare in the first place. And what I loved about this conversation with Olivia was how honest and grounded it felt. Nobody is saying healthcare professionals shouldn't make money. Of course they should. Clinics need to be profitable. Practitioners deserve to be rewarded for the education, the experience, and the hard work that they put in every single week. But there's a big difference between building a successful business because you consistently help people and chasing shortcuts that prioritize profits over patients. I think patients are much smarter than some practitioners realize. They know when they're being listened to. They know when someone genuinely cares, and they definitely know when they're being sold to. One thing I've learned over many years of practice is this: you never regret doing the right thing. You may occasionally lose money in the short term, that's fine. You may spend extra time with the patient, and that's okay. You may refer someone elsewhere when you could have kept them in-house, and that's what you should do. But over time, integrity compounds. It builds trust with your patients, it builds reputation in your community, and it definitely builds referrals. And eventually, it builds a far better business and a far happier career. And I also think Olivia's final questions were incredibly powerful, because if something feels off, there's usually a reason for that. I know a lot of different professions listen to this podcast. So whether you're a podiatrist, physiotherapist, sports therapist, chiropractor, dentist, doctor, or a business owner in any field, I think this episode is a good reminder that long-term success rarely comes from shortcuts. It usually comes from honesty, consistency, professionalism, and caring deeply about the people that you help. And if you know any other healthcare professionals who would benefit from listening to this episode, please share this episode with them. Okay, that's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.